There are many claims made by L. Ron Hubbard that Scientology consists of scientifically developed techniques which were rigorously tested and which he guarantees will work 100% of the time on 100% of the people to whom it is applied if they follow his sometimes very vague instructions to the letter. Unfortunately, Scientology does not hold up to this kind of scientific scrutiny or peer review, and so doesn't even really try, instead choosing to cloister itself away behind barbed wire fences and gilt facades which look great but don't prove anything. Now, don't get me wrong in this video, because I'm not actually knocking the idea of faith. There's nothing wrong with faith, religious or otherwise. It simply means putting one's trust or confidence in something without necessarily having any tangible proof of that thing. We all have a kind of faith in things, even if those things aren't directly related to God or religion. For example, many optimists have a faith that things will turn out all right, that people are basically good, and given a choice, most people will choose a positive rather than a negative path. There are lots of good reasons to believe such things, but it is a leap of faith to speak in such broad terms about people and things we can't so easily predict or know. No matter how many times we observe the sun rise and set, that does not mean it's going to rise again. We may have faith that it will, but there's no concrete evidence that it shall always be so, especially since we already know that one day it will not. Whether that day is tomorrow or not is the question. Now, just to be clear, here is how Hubbard described Scientology. Scientology applied the exact methods of science to the problem of the human mind and spirit, and won. It means the study of knowingness. Its immediate result in application is the bettering of ability in individuals and groups. It is a practical religion for all denominations and doesn't require faith in anybody until they have experienced something to have faith about. Scientology is the science of knowing how to know answers. It is an organized system of axioms and processes which resolve the problems of existence. This science is formed in the tradition of 10,000 years of religious philosophy and considers itself a culmination of the searches which began with the Veda, the Tao, Buddhism, Christianity, and other religions. Scientology is a Gnostic faith in that it knows it knows. This is its distinguishing characteristic from most of its predecessors. Scientology can demonstrate that it can attain the goals set for man by Christ, which are wisdom, good health, and immortality. It's a bit of a semantics game in Scientology as to what Scientologists believe versus what they know. If you dig in deep, you'll find there's a whole lot of believing and not a lot of knowing. This all comes together in the way Hubbard actually redefined truth as a relative quantity, which could be different from one person to the next, thereby opening the door to the idea of your truth versus my truth. Truth has been a topic of philosophic discussion for thousands of years and is not something I'm going to resolve here in this video. But I will say that Hubbard also shelved the entire discussion by saying that a principle is as true as it is workable, and that was really the only measure to use. Well, that's not very satisfactory, because you can have 10 different explanations for why something works, be wrong about every one of them, and still make it work. If I take an aspirin and say that it solved my headache because it coats the lining of my stomach with magic powder, I'd be wrong, but the aspirin will still work. This is where Hubbard's ignorance of the scientific process really stands out. The other and even more significant idea Hubbard pushed off is this one. Anything that isn't true for you in Scientology, when you study it carefully, isn't true. That statement makes truth a relative quantity, which changes from one person to the next. Yet if you're dealing with scientific principles, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Hubbard talks about how Scientology is a science of certainty, that it is an aim at a total no, K-N-O-W. On July 15, 1957, in a lecture called Scientology and Effective Knowledge, Hubbard discussed Buddhism and Scientology's relation to it and knowledge in general when he said this.
Well, now, there hasn't actually been any declared effort in the direction of total information and intelligence on the subject of man regarding his whereabouts, which was an analytical, knowing, reasoning approach having nothing to do with faith or belief on the basis of take it or leave it. If it's true to you, it's true, and if it isn't true to you, it isn't true. Since that time, and that is practically 2,500 years ago.
What he's describing, of course, is the very definition of faith. As Senator Daniel Moynihan once said, everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts.